Hi there, so in this video we're going to create a prototype that enables people to remove items from a list in any order. So no on rails functionality. This is completely as realistic as it would be in a real app. So without further ado, let's have a look at the completed prototype and see what it's going to look like. Okay, I've got this basic wireframe which I'm going to add this functionality to. We can see here I've got a number of items in a scrollable list. So I'm going to start by just removing the first item. So as you can see, when I remove item 1, item 2 moves to the left and everything is still in the correct order. But what if I remove item 7? That should mean that item 8 should go up here and item 9 should move across. So let's just do that. So as you can see, item 8 has now moved up and item 9 has moved across. We could also just remove item 12. We can remove item 10, that's going to move item 11 up. So I can basically interact with this in absolutely any order. And this is what we're going to be building in this video. Okay, so download the starter Py file if you want to follow along. To make this feature work, we need all of the items to be instances of a central component, as the logic we need to create is repetitive and it needs to run inside of every instance. So if we have a look over here in the layers panel, we can see that we have 12 instances of a component called tile. Our first job is to make each instance unique. We need a unique reference so we know which tile to hide when that close button gets pressed. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open the tile component. And inside here, we're going to come down to the variables panel. We're going to create a numeric variable and we're going to call it item ID. And we want to make this variable overridable because we want to be able to add a unique ID outside to every single instance. Okay, so next we want to create a second numeric variable. And we're going to call this selected ID. So this variable will be where we'll store the item ID that has been selected. Now we can't actually remove or delete items in ProtoPy. So we have to fake it by setting their visibility to 0. So let's do that next. So we're going to come over and add a tap trigger. We're going to target the button remove layer. So that's our little close button. That's actually another subcomponent. And we're going to add inside of here an opacity response. And we're going to target the tile layer. And we're going to set its opacity to 0. Okay, we're going to leave all the animation settings at their defaults. You can play around with those if you wish. Next, we need to send the current instance's item ID to the scene so that the message can be received by all of the tile instances. So let's add a send response inside of here. We're going to leave it at send to current scene and we're going to set the message to reorder. We're going to check this send value together. And we're going to tap into the text field, open up the FX, so basically the formula window, and we're going to choose our item ID variable. So let's go and search for that. There it is, and click OK. Okay, we want to receive the ID we just sent and assign it to the other variable so we can compare the two variables to see if they're the same as each other or whether they're greater or lesser than each other. So to do that, we're going to add a receive trigger. We're going to name this reorder. We're going to leave the channel as receive from current scene and we're going to choose that reorder message that we created a minute ago and we need to assign that to this selected ID variable. So we're going to check assign to variable and we're going to choose selected ID. Okay, we want to know if the instance ID is greater than the selected ID we just received. If it is, we know that the item is further down the list and it needs to move up. Okay, so let's add a condition. And we're going to set the first condition to item ID. And we want to see if the item ID is greater than the selected ID. Okay, next we need to check which column the tile is in. We know that if the X position is 0, it must be on the left. So let's add a subcondition. We're going to set the first drop down to formula. And we're going to add a formula here. So we're going to look for the tile layer. type a dot, and we want its X property. So that's its X position. And we want to see if this is equal to 0. Okay, now we know the tile is in the left column, it needs to move up a row and be positioned on the right. So inside the condition, we're going to add a move response. We're going to target the tile layer. We're going to set the position to move by, and in the X field, we're going to set a value of 170. And in the Y field, we're going to set a value of -122. And these values just happen to correspond with the amount of pixels that each item needs to move within the list. So it's just taking into account the padding and the positioning. Okay, next we need to check if items are in the right column. The easiest way to work out that is to look to see if their X position is not 0. So let's duplicate this condition block. And we're going to come into the second condition, and we're just going to change this equality operator to not equal. That's all we need to do here. Let's come into the move response. And we're going to change the X position to -170 because we want to move it to the left. And we're going to remove the value completely from the Y field because we don't need it to move up a row. In fact, we can actually remove this completely, so it's got no value in it whatsoever. Okay, that's all we need to do in here. We can go back to the scene. Okay, the final thing we need to do to make this all work is to give each item a unique ID. We'll use the overridable variable we set up in the component earlier to do this. So let's come into each tile, and we just need to change this item ID to the corresponding number. So a bit boring this, but we're just going to run through these. Okay, so with all our unique numbers in place, let's open up Preview and give this a test. So I can remove item 1, but I could equally remove item 5, which means item 6 will move up and item 7 will move across. It all seems to be working as expected. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've hoped you enjoyed learning about how to create this 2-column list. I hope it'll be useful in your projects, and I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.